I'm going to go through the ER provider workflow. When you log in, launch point is what you're going to see, and that's the ER tracking board. You can see right here, these are the patients that are currently assigned to me. This is all of the emergency room, and these zones 1 through 5 are different sections of the ER, whether it's the hallway, back hallway, fast ER, or overflow ER. Those are all going to be split into zones. And from here, you can toggle within each of these zones between your patients and unassigned patients. When you first come onto shift, you need to check in. This allows you to be able to assign patients to yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check in. To assign a patient to yourself, you're just going to click in this box right here and you're going to select assign. Right now, I'm already assigned as this patient, so all I have is an unassigned button. But if I were to come in and this area is blank, I would click on it and I would assign myself to that patient. There's a lot that you can do from the launch point tracking board. If you look here on the right, you're going to see these different icons that let you drill into the patient chart. So for example, this patient has labs placed on them. So you can, this little person right here is patient summary. You can kind of get an idea of some triage information, patient information, vital signs, medications that have been ordered, lab results that have been ordered or resulted. From here, you can also check this show prior encounter, and it's going to show you prior encounter lab results. I can see EKG results. I can view radiology results. And I can view the patient care that's ordered on the patient or has been documented on the patient. And I can see the consults that have been ordered. So what's nice about here is, you can get a snapshot of what's going on with the patient and even place orders from the launch point. So I'm going to go through a little bit later how to set up these order favorites because they are specific to the launch point. But basically, you can have order favorites for medications. You could have it for labs. You can have it for EKG, radiology, and these will be the things that you want to order most often from this launch point area of the screen. So if I want to order a Tylenol on a patient, maybe I want to place CABC and a CMP, an EKG order, and maybe a chest x-ray 2-view, I can go ahead and I can select those things on my orders area of this particular component of the chart, and I can click this little inbox right here and I can sign and close. What that's going to do is it's going to file those orders on the patient. From here, I can also launch out to do documentation if I want. I don't necessarily need to go directly into the chart, and that's going to launch the ER provider note. And from here, I can do any documentation that I want to do. I would just drag and dictate into these particular fields or however you want to address filling out what you need to fill out on a patient. So you'll go ahead, you'll fill out what you want to fill out. Certain areas that are documented by nursing or even the provider as it relates to problem lists are going to pull into this so that you're not going to need to, re-enter that data. There are different dot phrases, but like right here, for example, this point of care testing is pulling automatically. If for whatever reason, like your lab data, you're not seeing it pull in and you want to pull it in, you could do dot lab and you could pull in like the last 24 hours of lab. Same thing with radiology. If you hit .rad, you can pull in the last 24 hours of radiology. So those are dot phrases. There's different public dot phrases that are already in the system that you can utilize, or you can build them yourself at a different point in time. They're called dot phrases or they're called auto text, and there'll be a video specific to how to create those dot phrases in that auto text. If you just wanted to fill documentation out, but you don't want to file it yet, you can go ahead, you can fill out that information and you can hit save and close. And that'll allow you to come back in and edit the note a little bit later. Or if you sign and submit, that's what actually files this note on the patient's chart. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to cancel this because I don't want to do anything with it yet. So if I want to place more complex orders on the patient chart than what I have right here in my favorites, I can go ahead and I can hit this open patient chart right here. You can also right click, go to ED provider view. That's going to launch the patient level desktop on the patient. So this patient I already have open, which is why it didn't open up for me. I'm going to go back to my main menu, which is the provider view. So when you log in, the initial screen that you're going to see is this ED workflow tab. This blue menu bar right here, this is kind of standard across all providers, whether you're an ER provider, inpatient, or surgery provider. So that's really not going to change. From here, you're pretty much going to get back to your provider view, quick orders. You can do your documentations, result review. You could view the MAR, INOs. You'll do your orders from this area as well. There are multiple ways to do orders, but this is just one particular way. And then, like I said, you're basically going to be working off of this gray menu bar and this ED workflow tab. So these you can drag and drop. You just hold and pull, and you can arrange it in the way that makes sense to you in terms of how you want to document, view the patient's chart, and discharge the patient. You can hide components from that gray side by going to this little icon right here, components. You can uncheck and check the things that you want to see or the things you don't want to see. And this is all sticky. So you log back in. The next day, it's going to be however you set it. So it's one of the first things you kind of want to set up at Go Live. You're going to see these different documentation elements in the chart. And when you first log in, they're going to look like this, where they span the screen. If you want to move all these documentation elements to the right side of the screen, you're going to use this little contextual view button right here, and that's going to shoot these items to the right side of the screen. And if you don't want all those different documentation elements, again, you can remove those from the components area. And you have the option, you can either launch a provider note from here and just dictate directly in here, or if you do dictate into these particular fields and you hit that ED provider note, it's going to pull that documentation from this right-hand side into the note. It's just how do you want to work? How do you want to document what makes sense to you? So from here, if I want to enter orders, there are multiple ways to do that. I can come here to orders, hit add, and I'll go over a couple of different things. So this little button right here, this little star, is the favorites. If you hit that drop down next to the star, you have the option to organize favorites. In order for you to see your favorites on the launch point board, you need to have folders that are named exactly like this: LP EKG, LP imaging, labs, meds, patient care. And you have to have it prefixed with LP. It has to look exactly like that in order for it to pull to the launch point board. You can't have subfiles within these files on launch point. So you're just going to build your favorites within these different folders, and don't add folders within those folders because it's not going to work. For your favorites that aren't going to be on the launch point board, like my labs, pharmacy, radiology right here, you can build additional folders. And to do that, you would just click, like if I want to build a folder under lab, I would click on lab and I would create a folder. If I wanted to delete it, I could just click on it, delete it, click on it, rename it. I can add new folders. When we get into our quick order view, you can only really have 15 folders on the quick order view. So I do recommend, like when you have pharmacy, if you want to break it into categories, that you, instead of creating folders for each category, you kind of put pharmacy and then have your categories that break down. You can pull favorites from other people. So if someone has favorites built and you just want to copy those favorites over to you, you can do that. Once you copy those over to you, you do have the ability to modify those. And the default sort right now is alpha. So everything's going to sort alphabetical. If you uncheck that, it gives you the ability to sort those in your own way. But depending on how much items you have in here, that could be kind of tedious to do. To find the ER order sets, you're going to search ED, enter. And you can see these little yellow icons right here. These are all the ED order sets. So if you click on one of those, it's going to launch the order set. And you can see it right here under this medical. You can see this ED cardio order set, planned, pending. So it's pending my filing it on the patient. You can kind of get acquainted with these order sets as you log in. You can see like if there's any pre-checks or not. Everything should basically be in alphabetical order. But what you could do is you can create favorites off of these. So even if you don't have items pre-checked, but maybe you always order this on, cardio type patients, you could check those items that you want. If you wanted to add meds to this cardio order set, you could hit add to phase, and you would add all those orders to this order set, and then you could save as favorites, save as my favorite right here. And then that order set with those meds that you added and the pre-checked boxes that you put will be available to you as a favorite. Um, and those you will find. So this add right here button, this is kind of adding different plans and one-off orders that aren't associated with these plans. This add to phase is adding medications or orders to the particular phase that I'm working on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select add. If I had saved a plan as a favorite, like we were just talking about with the order sets, those would be under my favorite plans. So that's one way to do your orders. There's also this quick orders view. And when you first log in to LaunchPoint to FirstNet, which is the Cerner ER platform, you're going to see all of these different items on your quick orders page. And those items are like the Cerner defaults, and they cannot be used because we're on a shared domain. We have to create our own quick orders. We tried to have Cerner remove them, but they said they cannot be removed, that your users have to manually remove them. So before you use this quick orders page, just know that you need to remove the favorites that came with the system. So to do that, if you hit this drop down for components, you would uncheck those items that are on that page. And then from there, you would add folder to add your favorites to this page, which creates the quick orders. Quick orders are basically just your pharmacy favorites or your lab favorites or your favorites that you built within order entry. So when I was here in orders, I'm going to hit add right here. And I'm going to go to organize favorites. These favorites that I have here are the same orders and folders that I'm going to have on that quick orders page. What it allows me to do is go into quick orders outside of order entry, and it just kind of streamlines and makes the ordering process a little bit faster. So I'm going to go to quick orders again. And as you can see here, I would be able to just come into my quick orders. I could go to nausea. I guess I don't have anything in there. Let's see what I have. Okay. I could come here, I could go to pain, and I could order this hydromorphone 0.5. It's going to go to this little inbox right here. I can kind of go through my favorites, order what I want on the patient, and then I can go ahead and I can click on that, and I can either modify the details if I want to further modify, or I can just sign these orders, and those orders will file. There's other quick orders here. Like if you go to this trauma orders, you're going to see trauma orders. Again, these nice little favorite folders that you currently see that came with Cerner cannot be used. They're not linked to our pharmacy formulary. They're not linked to our lab, radiology, patient care stuff that's built within our system. So just know that as you go through these different favorite folders that you cannot use what the system comes with, that we have to create these and we have to add these folders. In order to get the different colors, if you hit this little drop down right here, you can select a different color theme for the different items if you just want it to look a little bit more pretty than these gray boxes. You also have the option to change the layout. So if I want a 4-column layout, and if I want to be able to drag and drop these fields into the organization that I want it to be in, I could hit this drag and drop button, and that's what's going to allow me to pull these items over. If I want to remove one of these folders from this area, I need to hit this down button and I can hit remove folders. And that'll remove that. So yeah, these are drag drop. You can change the column view. I do recommend leaving this new order entry, which is a default, because the new order entry is just basically linked to the Cerner order entry and shows your favorites. So I think that would be okay to use and keep. You can also have prescription favorites that you can build. As you can see, like the folders that I had on the inpatient, they're still here, but because they're not prescription medications, they're inpatient medications, those items aren't going to show here. What's going to show is the items that are prescription favorites that I have built. If I hit this plus sign, add new order entry, it's also going to launch order entry for me. In order to do prescriptions, you have to be set to a type of prescriptions. So right now it's inpatient. That would be like any of the meds that are going to be given in the emergency room. Prescription are those items that are going to be e-prescriptions sent to the pharmacy. So if you're going to go and you're going to discharge a patient, I would go back to this provider view. And you can right click and discharge patient from the tracking board, but I'm just going to show you. I'm going to order my discharge patient within order entry. I'm just going to sign and submit the discharge patient order so the nurse knows that I want to discharge that patient. I'm going to go back to this provider view. And right now I've already filled out these elements, but normally these elements are red and they all need to be addressed in order for me to discharge my patient. So this order profile one, this turns green when the discharge patient order has been placed, which I just placed. So that's why that is green. Problem list, which you're going to manage throughout the patient's stay in the ER. Assuming that you've managed those problem lists and you've addressed the chronic problems. So if the patient doesn't have any chronic problems, you can just hit, there's a button that pops up right here that says no chronic problems. You just need to select that. But you need to have the visit problems and the chronic problems addressed to get that green checkbox. Home medications, you're going to do the discharge medication reconciliation. You're going to select discharge. You can just hit continue remaining home meds and it's going to default these to continue. This was a medication that I ordered while the patient was in-house. I can send a prescription for that if I want to. Otherwise, I'm just going to say, like, I don't want to continue it. If I want to add a prescription to this patient, like perhaps I want to order ibuprofen 600, and again, you do have access to your favorites. When I enter order entry from the discharge medrec, my type defaults to prescriptions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select ibuprofen. For the most part, a lot of these are going to have fields filled out. This particular one, I'm getting this blue circle with the white X. It wants to know a stop date and time. And then you're going to go ahead and you're just going to hit sign. And you're going to send those e-prescriptions. If you had any controls, you'll get, it'll prompt you to authenticate. You also have the ability to sign and print if you want to sign and print. After you've done your discharge medication reconciliation and sent your discharge prescriptions, you could move on to the patient education. From here, based off of the problems that are put on the patient, is the education that's going to be suggested. So this patient had a problem of chest pain. These are now my options for the education that I can provide. And you can toggle to different languages and you just select that education. The next component is follow-up. You have these default quick picks right here. I recommend that on your first couple of discharges, you fill these out and you save them as a template so that you don't have to fill them out every time. So for example, I'm going to select follow-up with my primary, but it doesn't really give me any details. So if I know that I always say follow up with your primary within 2 to 4 weeks, you know, I could default that in. I could default any instructions or comments to the patient. I could drag and dictate into this field. There's some predefined comments. I would just go in, I would create what my standard follow-up is on patients, and I would just save as a template and save that so that the next time that I discharge a patient, that option's there already pre-filled out for me. And you can always go back in, click on these, and you can hit modify to modify or remove to remove. You can select multiples for the follow-up. But basically, once all these red items are done and they are turned green, that means that the patient is good to be discharged. And the last thing you'll probably do after you've done that discharge and you're done seeing the patient, you would just go ahead and you would go back to your note and sign that note off. So if I go to this ED provider note, I could either further document or maybe I already documented on the patient, but I would finish up with this note. It's going to pull over, assuming that I've done my discharge information, education follow-up prior to launching the ED provider note to sign. If I've done that, then it's going to pull in the patient education for me, the follow-up I gave the patient. It's going to pull in the med rec, any prescriptions that I've sent into my ED provider note so that I don't have to redocument any of that. So at the very end of seeing the patient, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign and submit to sign that provider note. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit sign, and that's going to file that note into the patient's chart. I'm not sure how you guys are going to handle provider handoffs. That'll be something you guys discuss within the Vituity group, but there is different options of doing like a handoff note. So whatever it is that you choose to do, that'll be like an internal workflow that you guys define.